Mechanical engineering is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. My hair's always messed up from the safety helmet. I go to the hardware store for fun. And whenever I see a problem, I can't help myself. I have to drop everything until I've solved it. This is ruining my life. Okay, I admit I might actually like all of those things. Except messing up my hair. However, since I started working as an engineer over 3 years ago, I have noticed quite a few negatives that a lot of people are bothered by. And I've also met quite a few engineers who, let's say, whose performance shows that engineering is not for everyone. So I've summarized all of that into 9 conditions that I think make you unsuited for mechanical engineering. And just a warning, I'm gonna be brutally honest and very, very direct. There's no caveats happening today. The first one is you don't enjoy learning about new technology. It's kind of an obvious point, but still super important to consider. As a mechanical engineer, you will be expected to quickly familiarize yourself with new technology, whether that's lithium-ion batteries, line scan cameras, chain conveyors, hydraulic elevators, or 6-axis robots. And it really helps if you're interested in learning about new technologies and how they work, because then you're going to be able to go deep quickly and ask all the right questions and persist until you fully understood this technology. If you don't have this drive to find out, you're unfortunately just not going to be a good engineer. Number 2, if you think that mechanical engineering is dying out. This might seem like a weird point, but believe it or not, I often get messages from people asking me if studying mechanical engineering is really such a good idea, since the industry is clearly dying out, which is a completely ridiculous belief, as anyone who works in this industry will know. But I'm not gonna try to convince you. I don't have time for that. So maybe just don't go into a field that you don't believe has a future. Number 3, if you're very unsure about studying mechanical engineering and you're easily swayed by others. I mean, in general, don't study anything that you're super unsure about, but especially not mechanical engineering, because mechanical engineering is hard and requires you to some extent to put on blinkers and just get through it. There will always be some schmuck that comes along and tells you about this other great thing that you could be doing instead, like software engineering or mechatronics or dropshipping. I don't know, or whatever it is, and then you're gonna message me something like, "Hi Anna, I'm studying mechanical engineering and I really like it, but everyone tells me that mechanical engineering is irrelevant nowadays and I should do software engineering instead. What should I do?" I don't mind if you explore and figure out that something else is better suited to you, and then you make the thought out decision to switch. But doing that just because other people tell you to, come on. So if you're already unsure and easily get FOMO, then don't go into mechanical engineering. Number 4, if you're not prepared to work hard, especially during your engineering studies. To become a mechanical engineer, you need to get an engineering degree. And to get an engineering degree, you need to pass a bunch of difficult classes, a lot of which you may not be interested in at all, and they may have difficult math, and you might not see what you would ever need those classes for, especially if you don't plan to go into those specific fields. So it's really tough to stay motivated. And if you don't think that you can pull yourself together and work hard, even when it seems pointless, then mechanical engineering is probably not for you. And the next point goes hand in hand with this one, and that's number 5. If you have a low frustration tolerance and you're not willing to push through it. And by that I mean you don't like when you're not instantly good at something and tend to give up easily and move on to something that you're already good at. And I was actually struggling with this myself at the beginning of my engineering studies, because from high school I was really used to getting good grades without having to study much at all. Now you can improve your frustration tolerance as I did, but you have to be willing to push through the frustration and keep going, even when you're bad at something in the beginning. You're gonna experience a lot of frustrations as an engineer, whether that's getting bad grades in engineering school, not understanding a difficult math concept, not being able to solve a problem, or just everything going wrong at once in your project. The quicker you're able to calm down and try again, the better of an engineer you'll be. And if you can't do that, then you're unfortunately gonna have a hard time as an engineer. Number 6, if you expect to have a predictable workload and schedule, meaning that you want to start working and finish working at the same time every day and have the same amount of things to do in a day, then you should reconsider your career choice. This obviously varies between different companies and industries, but generally engineering work is organized in projects, which go through periods of very high workload and lower workload, which means you sometimes work really long hours with a lot to do in a day, while other times you may be going through a bit of a boring phase where nothing is really happening. And you often cannot predict your workload either, because things can happen, like you get put on a new project at short notice, or something breaks that you need to fix really quickly, or something holds up your project so that you can move forward, or a project gets cancelled so that you have nothing to do. This is definitely a tough part of mechanical engineering that you should be willing to accept. Number 7, if you expect to have a lot of physical freedom. And by physical freedom, I mean having the ability to work from home or from wherever you want, being able to go home after work every single day, and just in general deciding over when and where you work, which you might have seen this from some software engineers who work 100% remotely, or who at least work in the same nice office every single day. It's not impossible to have this kind of freedom, but it's definitely much more rare. And the reason for that is that mechanical engineers work with physical products. Whether you're working with production machines, motors, cars, airplanes, headphones, or tiny bearings, these physical products exist somewhere in the world. And whenever you need to test the products, solve problems with them, or make design changes to them, you're gonna need to go to where the products are, which could either mean coming into the office, going to your company's factory, going to another company's factory, or traveling to wherever else this product is being produced or operated. And that's probably not gonna be on your own schedule, but rather whenever it's necessary, because something breaks or is delayed or is ready too early. Number 8, if you don't work well under pressure. The long working hours and changing workload and sudden problems that can come up already tell you that there can be a lot of pressure at times to get something done. So if you cannot handle this kind of stress and let it get to you, and maybe even cannot sleep when you didn't get everything done you wanted to or had to, then mechanical engineering is probably not for you. Number 9, if you can't motivate yourself to get stuff done and are bad with following through. As a mechanical engineer, or any engineer really, you're gonna be expected to be able to sit down and focus on a problem for long periods of time. You're also gonna be expected to run several projects at the same time, some of which you're not gonna find that interesting. And there's not necessarily gonna be someone reminding you to do your work more than once. So you might be tempted to just accidentally stop working on them. Oops. And hope that everyone forgets about it. In a well-working organization, people will not forget. And they will notice that your projects are not getting done and think you're a bad engineer. And honestly, they will be right. I know this was all very negative, but sometimes you just have to tell it how it is. And if after all of this you still want to become a mechanical engineer, congratulations, you've passed the test. I'm super excited for you. And to make sure you actually make it through your engineering studies and get to become a mechanical engineer, I recommend you watch this video right here, where I go through the top 5 reasons why people drop out of engineering school and how to avoid them.